Starting off our list at number 10, we have Leighton Meester. This one is by far one of the craziest celebrity birth stories I have ever heard. In 1986, Leighton's mom was in prison after being arrested for smuggling illegal substances out of Jamaica. Turns out she was serving her time when she was pregnant with Leighton and still had 16 months left of her sentence, which means that Leighton was born in jail. She wasn't physically born inside a jail cell, her mother was actually transferred to the hospital for the birth. The now Hollywood actress spent the first few months of her life in a halfway house before eventually being placed in custody of her grandmother until her mom's release. After being back in the care of her parents, they got divorced and faced a ton of financial struggle. But despite all the negative things in her childhood, Leighton does not hold it against her parents. In all her interviews, she says that they are good parents and she has a lot of good childhood memories. Moving on to number 9, we have Eminem. The rapper has always been very open and honest about the dysfunctional childhood he had, which was filled with abuse and poverty. He describes his childhood as the scraping the bottom of the barrel kind of life after his parents didn't have a home and just dragged him around the Midwest, staying in different motels. His father, Bruce Mathers, deserted him and his mom when he was just a baby. As for his mom, Debbie Mathers, she was in and out of his life throughout the remainder of his childhood. She also had another son with another man, and at one point left Eminem with his great aunt and uncle who just did their best to raise him. But even when he was in the care of his mother, he says that she was very towards him. He eventually went through school but got bullied so bad physically that he was in a coma for a few days. That experience later turned into his 1999 song called Brain Damage, if you've ever wondered. When he was just 17 years old, he dropped out of school and went on to chase his dream of a rapper, and the rest is pretty much history. But you should watch 8 Mile if you don't know how that happened. Up next, number 8, we have Soon-Yi. Her life became one of the biggest controversies in 2020 after her relationship with her adoptive father became a lawsuit. She was born in South Korea around 1970 and actually has no birth certificate. Her approximate age was determined by bone scans. In 1976, she was found living on the streets, eating out of dumpsters before being adopted by Mia Farrow and Woody Allen, who had huge careers in Hollywood. Years down the road, when Soon-Yi was in high school, Mia found inappropriate nude photos of her in her husband's home. The truth was later revealed that the two of them actually had an ongoing romantic relationship with each other, and that continued on to present day. They are now married to each other despite being father and daughter through adoption papers. Soon-Yi is now 50 years old and Woody is 85. This strange relationship opened up a lot of other secrets in the family, with one of his other daughters claiming that he also did inappropriate things with her when she was a child. As of right now, the lawsuits he is facing are still unsettled. Sliding into number 7 is Drew Barrymore. You would never know the struggles she faced in her childhood based off her successful career and always beaming smile. But her childhood was so dark and twisted that she was put into an institution at just 13 years old. When she was just 11 months old, she first appeared in a commercial and then booked the role in E.T. at age 7. Her parents struggled with their own addiction problems, and Drew picked up the habits on her own at a very young age. She revealed that she started pouring liquor over her ice cream when she was just 7 years old, and got drunk for the first time at Rob Lowe's birthday party when she was just 9 years old, all under the guidance of her mother. She went out partying with her mother up to 5 times a week, and at age 12 began trying illegal substances. She was fighting a drug and alcohol addiction by the time she was 13 and had undergone rehabilitation treatment for 18 months. Her father left her and just stopped being a part of her life, and when she got out of treatment, she filed for emancipation from her mom, so she was living on her own at 14 years old. As she got older, she worked at a local cafe and just continued to pursue acting. In spot number 6, we have Lindsay Lohan. Her childhood was spent in front of the cameras as her family had close connections to the show business when her personal career started out. Fans have seen Lindsay's personal struggles in her adult life, like her DUIs and time in jail, but many have wondered if her childhood played a part in any of that. She did have struggles in her family. Her dad was married to her mom for 22 years but filed for divorce in 2007. He struggled with alcohol and substance addiction for many years, even appearing on Celebrity Rehab with Dr. Drew. His struggles were also legal legal issues. He served 3 years in prison from 1990 to 1993, another year in 1997, and 2.5 years in 2004. Her mom struggled too. She was also arrested and charged with a DUI of her own. In more recent times, Lindsay's dad was back in jail in April 2021 for new charges, and her mom was charged on May 4th, 2021 on felony drunk driving.
At number 5, we have Emma Roberts. Not too long after Emma was born, her father Eric Roberts abandoned her, leaving the star to grow up with her mother in Los Angeles. While Emma's parents would become enemies following their split, even Eric's sister Julia Roberts would be against his custody of Emma, and she would even help Emma's mother gain custody of the star. Years later, it would be revealed that Eric was struggling with substances, and that's why his sister didn't support him having Emma during the bitter battle. Despite following her father's footsteps, Emma isn't on best terms with her father, and rather being a father to his own child, he became a stepdad to Keaton and Morgan Simmons. Emma's mom took on the role of a mom and dad, so with her father being absent at most events and taking credit for her career, it only makes sense why the star chooses to hush her father out. At number 4, Angelina Jolie. Angelina Jolie's estrangement from her father, Papa John Voight, was finally finalized in 2002 when she legally dropped Voight from her last name. Angelina ultimately decided to petition her last name to be changed just a month before her father's interview with Access Hollywood. During the interview, he would go on to complain that she hadn't let him see his grandchild, and he pleaded for her to get help for specific mental problems. Angelina, who co-starred in the movie Tomb Raider with her father, would respond in the statement by saying, "I don't want to make public the reason for my bad relationship with my father. After all these years, I have determined that it's not healthy for me to be around my father, especially now that I'm responsible for my own child." And number 3, Tracy Morgan. Tracy Morgan hasn't seen his mom for 21 years. For years, Tracy's mom and sister have been bad-mouthing him to the media for refusing to help save his mother's home from foreclosure. Tracy became extremely saddened by the untrue stories, and he began to grow tired of people questioning his commitment to his family. In an interview with ABC News, Tracy went on to state that the reasons they aren't talking are between them, and that he hasn't seen his mother in 11 years outside of a random call here and there, and he's had little to no contact with his sister. Tracy was also helping his mother pay for the mortgage after she lost her job. However, after his mom and sister started talking to the media, Tracy would ultimately change his mind. And number 2, we have Frances Bean Cobain. Now, Frances Bean Cobain didn't officially cut off her mother, however, she did have a restraining order in place. Since Frances was a minor at the time, the allegations would remain sealed. However, that didn't stop tabloids from running story about what truly happened. The Daily Mail would claim that Frances took exception to Courtney Love's alleged substance use, and that they even cited some of Frances' testimony. Frances would say that her mom rarely ate, and she would often fall asleep with lit cigarettes in her mouth, and how she was afraid something bad would happen under the care of her mother. It was also then claimed that Courtney's actions led to the passing of 2 family pets, and this would leave her daughter to file for the restraining order so that her grandmother and aunt could be temporary guardians so she could get away. And at number 1 today, we have Liv Tyler. Liv Tyler didn't even know Steven Tyler was her father until she was 11 years old. Until that point, she believed that Todd Rundgren was her biological father. While Todd always knew there was a chance he wasn't Liv's father, he signed the birth certificate and gave her his last name and stepped in to raise her as his own. When Liv met Steven when she was 8 years old at one of Todd's concerts, she fell madly in love with him and would even go on to buy posters and talk to them. While Todd knew her father's true identity, he decided to keep it a secret due to Steven's reported substance use. In 2009, Liv would say that in the past few years, we haven't been very close. He's also been going through some things on his own, and he hasn't been around that much for us. So that's been hard, but I probably shouldn't be talking about this. I wish he was around more to know Milo more, but he has to go through what he goes through.
Number 10, Ariel Winter. While being a child star on screen can be tricky, the actress's family life off screen has been equally problematic. In recent years, Ariel has been open and honest about the emotional and physical mistreatment that she suffered at the hands of her mother, Crystal Workman. She told The Hollywood Reporter, quote, "My mother would dress me in the smallest miniskirts, sailor suits, low-cut things, the shortest dresses you've ever seen. People thought I was 24 when I was 12. If there was going to be a nude scene when I was that age, my mother would have 1000% said yes." And the result of that treatment was that Ariel was often because of her mother's actions. In addition, Crystal allegedly placed her daughter on strict diets and encouraged partying late at night even when she needed to be on set early the next day. She finally decided to emancipate herself at 14 and went on to live with her sister Chanel until she turned 18. To this day, her mother has only lashed out at Ariel for leaving and has even publicly insulted her fashion choices. I just want to see her have respect for herself and have some class. Ariel is starving for attention. Talk about issues. Number 9. Macaulay Culkin. The actor who rose to fame with the Home Alone movies sued his parents for emancipation and $17 million when he was just 16. In 1997, he claimed that his father, Kid Culkin, mismanaged his earnings and forced him to sleep on the couch. He told Empire last year, quote, "It's always misconstrued that I emancipated myself from my parents." So the former child star became financially separated from his parents as a teenager in the midst of their battle for his custody, where his multi-million-dollar fortune was at stake. Stories circulated that the star sued his parents for $13 million and divorced them as legal guardians to stop them from controlling his future. But Culkin has since spoken up about the emancipation and cleared the air when it comes to what happened. He told Empire in 2020, quote, "I legally took my parents' names off of my trust fund and found an executor, someone who would look over my finances, just in case anyone wanted to stick their effing pinky in the pie. But the next thing you know, the story was that I divorced my parents. I just thought I was doing it cleanly, taking my father's name off, taking my mom's name off. So my opinion is unbiased. And when I did that, the whole thing kinda ended a lot faster." Well, it seems like he definitely made the right decision. Number 8. Rose McGowan. The charmed actress's childhood was anything but normal. In 2011, she revealed that her family was involved with the controversial Children of God cult when she was a child. Basically, it was a free love hippie dream gone horribly wrong that has been blighted by disturbing allegations since it was originally formed in 1968. Unfortunately, Rose and her family were deeply caught up in their web, and it was only when her father learned that the cult's leaders planned to endorse encounters between children and adults that they escaped in order to protect Rose, who was only 9 years old at the time. But the rest of her youth was far from happy as long as she was under her father's roof. So Rose decided to take action. Quote, "I emancipated myself when I was 15. By then I was living in the back of a friend's house in Hollywood and had about 25 cents to my name. So I represented myself in court. I needed to have control of my own life." Although she managed to get away from her parents, it ended up being a challenging time for the actress as she went through a period of homelessness. But looking at how far she's come now, it's clear that escaping her parents eventually led to her monumental success. Number 7. Corey Feldman. The Stand By Me actor was granted emancipation from his parents at age 15, who he claimed had mistreated him as a child and stole nearly $1 million of his fortune. When discussing the predatory side of show business, Feldman told The Hollywood Reporter that his parents did very little to ensure his safety in the industry. In fact, he revealed that one of the men who him as a teenager was actually an employee of his father's, and that his father also coaxed him into trying every single illicit substance that he'd ever done. When speaking of his parents, Feldman called them selfish and said that they were more interested in what was happening with themselves than what was happening in his own life. "My manager father sued me for $40,000 when I tried to get emancipated, his reasoning being that he was taking time away from his business to be on the set with me. So apart from becoming money hungry, his parents also turned a blind eye to the darkness that loomed behind his rise to fame, and as a result, Feldman suffered physical, emotional, and violence at a time when his career seemed to be at its peak." Number 6. Jennifer Aniston. The Friends star married Brad Pitt in the year 2000, which was a beautiful wedding for the then Hollywood it couple. But most notably, Jennifer Aniston's mother was missing from the wedding, and according to Jen, this was for a good reason. In an interview with Ellen in 2018, the actress opened up about why she went years without talking to her mother, Nancy Dow, saying, quote, "She was critical. She was very critical of me. Because she was a model, she was beautiful, magnificent. I wasn't. I never was. She added that her mother was very unforgiving and would hold long grudges. Jen said that while she was a little girl who only wanted to be loved, her mother was too busy with things that didn't really matter. In fact, it was only a year before her marriage to Brad Pitt, in 1999, when Nancy wrote a tell-all book about her and Jen's relationship. From mother and daughter to friends. After it was published, Jen decided to cut contact with her mother. They ended up reuniting several years later, and by Jen's marriage to her second husband, Justin Theroux, in 2015, they were finally on speaking terms. But the funny thing is that Nancy still wasn't invited to that wedding either.
At number 5, we have Jennifer Aniston. Jennifer Aniston became estranged from her mother at a young age after witnessing the dissolution of her parents' marriage. After her parents' divorce, Jennifer's mother would become an emotionally draining figure. Her mother would then go on to say things like, "Honey, take care of yourself better," or "Honey, put your face on." And that's all Jennifer could recall of her mother during her childhood. Eventually, Jennifer and her mom would drift apart. However, after Jennifer matured, she came to the realization that her mom was just trying her best and was simply just trying to be her best. Jennifer realized that her mom was only saying those things because she really loved her. Jennifer understood that the times were also different when her mother was growing up, and her mother just simply missed what was actually important because she was holding on and doing the best she could. At number 4, we have Ariel Winter. Since starring in Modern Family, Ariel quickly rose to fame. However, her on-screen life was definitely clearly nothing like her off-screen life. In an interview with Hollywood Reporter in 2017, Ariel would share details about her life as a young actor and how she entered into the spotlight because of her mom. Ariel would explain that it was more just her mom pushing her to take on roles. However, her mom would also force her to dress in revealing clothing and to follow a strict diet at a young age. When the actor was 14, she would take her mother to court, and her sister Chanel Gray would become her guardian in 2014. By 2015, Ariel would finally be emancipated before turning 18. The actor would then tell Ellen that it was an emotional time for her because it was better for her to be on her own and to have a safer household and support system. At number 3 today, we have Meghan Markle. When Meghan Markle finally joined the royal family, the tabloids constantly started to pursue the actor on everything she did. Sadly, when Meghan was hoping she could run away to her family, they would also take it upon themselves to make regular comments about her and sell stories to the press. Even Meghan's father has been highly outspoken about Meghan, criticizing her from stepping down from her royal duties to even wanting to take legal actions just so he could see Meghan's 2 children. However, Meghan's relationship would really start to strain from her father when he was caught staging photos with the paparazzi before his daughter married Prince Harry. Meghan has urged her family not to discuss her relationships with Harry with the press. She's even said she looks at her own children and she couldn't imagine doing anything intentionally to cause them pain, so that's why it's so hard for her to reconcile with her family. At number 2, Bryce Hall. TikTok star Bryce Hall expressed his desire to become a better person after he got in a bit of trouble with the law after spending a day in prison. It convinced him to become a better person. Bryce has also said that he thought a lot about his father and how he was never around. He knew his father was mean and irresponsible, however he still did want a relationship with him. He would then add that his father spent some time behind bars for not paying child support. As Bryce was spending his time behind the bars waiting to be released, he recalled it made him feel just like his father and that he found the whole experience mortifying and shameful. Bryce has been pretty vocal about how he truly feels about his father and how his mom raised him with love and care, and it helped him become the man he is today. And at number 1 today, we have Brie Larson. Brie Larson has been estranged from her father for years now. In an interview with Elle magazine in 2016, Brie would go on to say that when she legally didn't have to have any visitations with her father anymore, she jumped on it. As a kid, Brie tried to understand her father and the whole situation, however she found that her father wasn't doing himself any favors. She then felt like he never really wanted to be a parent, and that put a lot of strain on their relationship. Back in 2015, her father acted like they were close and that he really supported his daughter after Brie won a Golden Globe for her Best Actress. Her father then went on to say that he was really proud of his daughter and that it was a little surreal, but now it seemed inedible. Coming in at number 10 today, we have Miley Cyrus, entering into the spotlight at a young age thanks to her role on the show Hannah Montana, which co-starred her dad Billy Ray Cyrus, who was a huge country star in the early 90s. At the time, the two shared a close bond, however jump to today and the two are no longer on speaking terms. A source would then spill to The Sun that Billy Ray's divorce to Miley's mom Tish had a massive massive impact on the wrecking ball hitmaker who had unfollowed her dad on social media. While speaking about the ongoing feud, the source would then mention Miley is all about peace, but she didn't agree with some things that her father has done. It really escalated and they are not on good terms. Neither of them at this moment are particularly eager to make amends right now without an apology. Apparently their disagreement all started when Billy Ray Cyrus got engaged to his new girlfriend Fire Rose, who he met on the set as one of the young actresses working on Hannah Montana with Miley. Number 9, Drew Barrymore. Many people don't know that Drew Barrymore comes from a family full of actors, which starts with her great-grandparents who were both stage actors and since has continued on as each generation of her family has had members that have gained some measures of success in the industry. For instance, Lionel Barrymore, who was born in 1978, was best known for playing Mr. Potter in It's a Wonderful Life. And Drew's mother, Jade, is not the most successful member of the clan, but she was acting in a large array of projects and earned herself some notoriety when Jade also did pose for Playboy. And she's mostly just famous because of Drew's successful acting career. Considering that Drew followed her into the industry, you may have forgotten at one point of their lives they seem to be pretty close, but that's actually not the case, as Drew is pretty much estranged from her mom, and she's even been quoted saying, "Can't really be in each other's lives." Being emancipated from her parents since the age of 14, Drew knew she had to get away from her mother at a young age because at the age of 9, her mother was making her adopt this party lifestyle while bringing her to Studio 54. While Drew was able to forgive her parents, she said that she will always be there for her mom, but sometimes she realizes that their chemistry and behavior will drum up a feeling that makes her say that she needs a break again. Hey my little peaches, are you liking this video so far? If so, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Number 8, Kate Hudson. Back in 2021, Kate Hudson would open up about her complex family dynamic, including her estrangement from her father. In an interview with Today, the actress would speak about growing up distant from her dad, who is a musician and actor, Bill Hudson. In the interview, Kate would say, "I think estrangement is unfortunately quite common. I think it's important for people to talk about that. If they can't reconnect or if it's too challenging, that's okay, right? I have a great family, I have a beautiful mother, I have a stepfather who stepped in and played a huge part in sharing what it is to have a dependable father figure in our life. But it doesn't take away from the fact that we didn't know our dad. Even though Kate is estranged from her dad, she would note that she has gone through a process that made her look at her dad and realize that she does still have love for him and that the love will never go anywhere. However, her healing process has been pretty personal and she feels like sometimes people just want to hear that they're not alone in that. Number 7, Lindsay Lohan. Lindsay Lohan is one of those celebrities that was so big at one point in the industry that she actually was able to make her family become minor celebrities. But it's pretty sad to say that her parents owe their low level of fame due to their dysfunctional relationship with their daughter. Things between Lindsay Lohan and her mother Dina have been pretty difficult in the past, with the actress and singer making several negative statements about her mother, but it seems like it's really Lindsay's dad Michael that Lindsay has the most troubles with, as Lindsay has even revealed her distaste for her father by even going as far to record a song that highlighted her treatment from her father. And she has even once described her father Michael as being a lunatic. Just by judging their past history, we can totally understand why Lindsay has chosen to live her life without her father's shadow, as he has done some pretty outrageous things to her. For an example, do you remember when he once recorded a phone call she made to him when she felt like her mother was out of control, and then he turned around and sold the private conversation to the media? If your parents saw you as a commodity to give them fame and money, you'd probably turn away from them as well too. Number 6, Brody Jenner. Now Brody Jenner is famous due to the accomplishment of people he is related to. That is actually a thing that is possible in modern society. Now if you don't know who Brody Jenner is, he is the son of an athlete who competed as Bruce Jenner, who later married into the Kardashian family and then publicly transitioned into becoming the beautiful Caitlyn Jenner, and the stepson of Kris Jenner, the leader of the Kardashian media empire. While Brody was briefly featured on the reality TV series Keeping Up with the Kardashians at one time, things have since gotten a little less cordial. After she and Caitlyn had been separated, Brody has not kept his feelings towards his former stepmother or her children a secret. He even came for the Kardashian empire when he was quoted saying that the Kardashians are not his family, but more of a profanity graffiti-laced manner at Coachella in 2016. In an earlier interview, he would also reveal that he had cut ties with Chris.
Halfway through our list, at number 5 is Dylan McDermott. You know those unsolved true crime murder mystery shows that everyone binge watches? And by everyone, I mean me. Well, his life was actually one of them. When he was just 5 years old, someone took the life of his mother, who was just 20 years old at the time. The horrific crime was labeled accidental at the time, but still remained as an unsolved mystery for the next 4 decades of his life. His father was in jail at the time of the incident, so Dylan and his infant sister were sent to live with his grandmother before being adopted by his stepmom. Dylan wasn't an eyewitness to the crime, but he did hear shots being fired. In 2011, he took matters into his own hands to get the case reopened for investigation and confirmed that it was one of the suspects. Fingers pointed to her boyfriend at the time, who was known for being violent and addicted to substances. However, the suspect was deceased before being officially accused of the crime. Up next, number 4, we have Missy Elliott. Fans learned a lot about Missy during her feature on Behind the Music, but they never expected to hear about how much she suffered in her upbringing. She revealed disturbing details about how she was assaulted by one of her cousins for the course of a year, too young to really understand what was happening at the time. She also admitted that later down the road she had to experience extreme poverty, which is just a testament to how far she's come having this wildly successful musical career. When it comes to her parents, she revealed that she had to witness some very terrible things growing up, as her father would assault her mother right in front of her. There was one specific incident she remembers from her childhood where her father had threatened to end her mother's life, and her uncle, who lived next door, actually had to come and step in and end the argument because it escalated and got very dangerous. So to say that she's come a long way would honestly be an understatement. Taking over our 3rd spot is Kelsey Grammer. Fans of Frasier would never know the layers of trauma he went through in the early years of his life. His character Frasier Crane made people laugh for years, but he has a very dark past that many people don't know about. He has been open about his life experiences though, and opened up about the time when he was just 13 years old and he lost his father in front of his house. The life of his father was actually taken by a cab driver right in their front yard after luring him outside by lighting their family car on fire. Apparently there was no connection between the cab driver and his dad. That was just the start of his losses though. He actually lost his sister when her life was taken at just 20 years old. He says that the guilt of that tragedy nearly destroyed him. Then, just a few years later, his 2 half-brothers passed away in a scuba diving accident involving a potential shark attack. And then, not long after that, one of his best friends lost his life in the 9/11 attack. He has faced tremendous amount of loss in his life, which played a huge part in his alcohol addiction. Thankfully though, as years went on, he has been able to get sober, and eventually he just left his pain in the past and was able to move forward. He lost everyone. Like, I can't even imagine his dad, his sister, his 2 brothers, a best friend. Moving on to number 2, we have Oprah Winfrey. Because she has spent her career smiling and helping other people through their own struggles, many people are shocked to know that she went through her own. She had anything but an ideal upbringing and began suffering from at a very young age. She suffered through this trauma by multiple relatives and turned to substances in order to cope with things. When she was just 14 years old, she was sent to live with her father and discovered that she was pregnant at 14. Sadly, the baby boy was born 2 months premature and did not make it past 2 weeks. Oprah has talked about how she felt very betrayed by a family member who sold the story of her son to the National Enquirer in 1990. But in more recent years, she has openly talked about her son and said that she finally gave him a name, which was Canaan, because it means new land, new life. We have made it to number 1, and we have Jim Carrey. This one always hits closer to home for me personally because the legendary actor actually grew up right here in Ontario, and to see how far he has come is honestly mind-blowing. He came from a good family, but things got difficult for them when his father lost his job when he was just 12 years old, and then Jim had to kind of step up and be like that father figure in a sense. Jim has talked about being homeless and how much they struggled to even get by. He revealed that their family lived in a van band for a while, and they all had to work together as security guards and janitors just to try and make ends meet. The actor said he had to work a 40-hour work week while being a young teenager just to try and keep his family off the streets. One thing that helped him progress was that he started booking comedy gigs in Toronto at local comedy clubs to make some extra money. So to go from being homeless booking gigs at small venues to one of the biggest comedic actors in the world is pretty crazy and inspiring. I actually just found out he's from Ontario like 2 years ago.
At number 10, we have Miley Cyrus. In the wake of her parents' bitter divorce, Miley Cyrus has completely shut out her dad. After Miley's mom Tish filed for papers back in April to end the 20-year marriage to Billy Ray Cyrus, a bitter family feud would explode and it would be displayed among the tabloids. And with it, Miley would finally cut off old ties she had with her father. Miley is simply done with her father, and it has even been said that she's always felt like her father was trying to cash in on her fame, dating back to the days when she played Hannah Montana. Miley believes the only one who ever truly looked out for her was her own mother, and that this huge rift may never heal. To add more fuel to the fire, Billy Ray Cyrus is apparently now engaged to singer Fire Rose, who he met while he was working on the set of Hannah Montana. Now, Miley definitely knows something none of us know, and it's leading to her resentment of her father. Many of Miley's friends have described the star of being incredibly stressed and feared that the wild child might just fall off her wagon again, as the family being in tatters could trigger another spiral. At number 9, we have Eminem. Eminem's boundless rage at his mother mirrors the invasiveness of her maternal love. Now, Eminem and his mother have been estranged for years, following the use of substances, accusations, and lawsuits. When Debbie became pregnant with Eminem at the age of 18, the rapper's father would abandon him right after he was born. Since leaving home, the rapper has gone on to slam his mother in songs for her lifestyle and how she raised him in not so good conditions. Debbie would eventually sue Eminem $10 million, claiming he was slandering her on the Slim Shady LP. Eminem's lawyers would then come out to say that Eminem's life is reflected in his music, and everything he has said can be verified as true. Debbie has then gone on to deny the claims. However, the two have since stayed estranged, and there's no hope for these two to reconcile anytime soon. Hey Peaches, are you liking this video so far? If so, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. At number 8, we have Macaulay Culkin. Macaulay Culkin has discussed his childhood growing up and his relationship with his father, and it's heartbreaking to hear. When the former child star sat down with Mark Maron on an episode of his WTF podcast, Macaulay would go on to discuss the relationship he has with his estranged father, Kit. He would say that his relationship was physically and mentally draining, and because his father was his manager when he was younger, he would have to travel with his son to auditions and film sets. Despite the pair working relationship, they were never close. Macaulay would then say he goes all around the world locked in a room with a man who didn't like him. Macaulay's father even went as far to scare him into not using cue cards on SNL, and Kit also tried to use his power as his son's manager to gain creative control over his son's films, which would soon prompt Macaulay to depart from acting at the age of 14. Macaulay also had to erase both his parents off of his bank account just so they would stop eating away at his giant fortune that he earned as a child actor. So it's no wonder why he cut his dad off. At number 7, Drew Barrymore. At the age of 7, Drew Barrymore would become a household name thanks to her role in the film E.T. With Drew's mother never being prepared to be a parent, when raising her daughter, she didn't always make the right decisions. After Drew's parents got divorced, her mother would take her to Studio 54, where she would be introduced to illegal substances and encouraged to dance with young famous men. By the age of 8, Drew would start to consider herself as a party girl, and she was trying to keep up with her mother's lifestyle. By the age of 12, Drew would go through a stint of rehabilitation, and her mother would go on to lose the credibility as a parent. By the time Drew turned 14, she would be emancipated from her mother, and by divorcing her mother, she would continue to live independently before she turned 16. The star then went on to self-educate herself and later became the actor and woman that most look up to today. Drew has always felt guilty, and she's had empathy and utter sensitivity towards her mother, but realized that the two can't be in each other's lives at this point. At number 6, Lindsay Lohan. Lohan. Lindsay Lohan's relationship with her father Michael is rocky at best, and the two often go years without speaking to each other. Lindsay's rocky relationship with her father dates all the way back to when the actor was a child, when Michael began to struggle with substances. Lindsay has once even said that her father put herself and her family through hell following a stint of verbal altercations. In 2012, Lindsay would call her father following an argument with her mom, and her dad would later sell this phone call to the press, which would result in Lindsay to fully cut off her dad by 2016 after she became so fed up with her father spreading rumors about her in the tabloids. I mean, considering her father also posted her number online for everybody to see, I don't blame this star's decision to keep her father out of her life from time to time.
Coming in at 5, Alexander Skarsgård. The Skarsgård family is filled to the brim with a bunch of talented and beautiful actors, one of them being, of course, Alexander Skarsgård, who appeared most recently alongside Nicole Kidman in Big Little Lies as her abusive husband. You will also be familiar with Alexander's brother, Phil, who was shot to fame through the role of Pennywise the Dancing Clown in Stephen King's It reboot. And of course, the father of these talented actors, none other than Stellan Skarsgård, an actor with a slew of awards under his belt for roles in films such as Good Will Hunting, Dogville, Exorcist: The Beginning, and of course, Chernobyl. It must be incredible to be a household name in a family of household names. Alexander was once interviewed about his famous dad way back when, stating, "He was a great dad when I was growing up, but it was tough because I didn't get to see him much. He worked 16-hour days, 6 to 7 days a week. I would go to the theater and hang out backstage to see dad, basically." Sad times. Coming at 4, Bryce Dallas Howard. I love Bryce Dallas Howard, the Golden Globe nominated actress who starred in films such as The Help, Jurassic World, 50-50, Hereafter, The Village, and Spider-Man 3. But we don't talk about that one. I don't blame her, I blame Tobey Maguire. However, this Hollywood icon was famous before she was even born, because her father, Ron Howard. That's right, this actress is the daughter of Hollywood royalty. Ron Howard, for those who don't know, is an actor turned director, and a 2-time Oscar winner for the critically acclaimed film A Beautiful Mind. He also directed Willow, Far and Away, Apollo 13, Cinderella Man, and The Da Vinci Code. He is a legend and one of my favourite directors of all time. Even though most believe his films to be Oscar baity, I don't care. He's great, and so is Bryce, and I will support them until the end of time. Okay. Bye. Coming in at 3, Colin Hanks. Now this one stumped me, and not for the reasons you would expect. Yes, I knew Colin Hanks was related to Tom Hanks, however, I spent years believing they were brothers. Rookie mistake. I did fail maths, so it all makes sense. Yeah, that's right, Colin Hanks is the son of Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson. Now it would be silly for me to explain the works of Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson, because at this point we all know. Well, for those not in the know, Tom Hanks has won 2 Academy Awards for Forrest Gump and Philadelphia. He is an absolute legend. His son, Colin Hanks, is famous for starring in films such as King Kong, Untraceable, and The House Bunny, a guilty pleasure, and has paved such a successful career for himself that it's easy to forget who his parents are. However, it is worth noting that Colin Hanks was born to Samantha Luz, who sadly passed away on March 12, 2002. Coming in at 2, Gwyneth Paltrow. I think it's safe to say we all feel the same way about Gwyneth Paltrow, just ever so slightly irritated anytime we see her pop up on the screen. To be honest, I blame her weird company Goop. There's something weird going on there. It's the eggs. Anyway, I digress. Gwyneth is an Oscar-winning actress. Yeah, you heard me. Oscar-winning actress. For what you might ask, Shakespeare in Love. A highly overrated film, but I get it. People love it. I understand. Honestly, I don't know why I'm hating on everyone so hard. I'm going through something, I think. Existential dread. Anyway, Gwyneth Paltrow has starred in some incredible films such as Sliding Doors, Seven, Emma, and The Royal Tenenbaums, arguably one of Wes Anderson's best films of all time. But this isn't about US. What a lot of people don't know is that Gwyneth is the daughter of Blythe Danner, a Hollywood icon known for her roles in Meet the Parents, Paul, and I'll See You in My Dreams. Blythe also has another child, Jake Paltrow, who is also in the industry, but as a director. This family is stacked. And finally, coming in at number 1, Angelina Jolie. Oh, how I miss Angie. I know she's still around, I just generally miss her when I'm not in the process of watching her in a film. Angelina, of course, hit the scene back in 1995 when she starred in Hackers, before she went on to star in hit films like Gia, The Bone Collector, Girl Interrupted, and one of my many guilty pleasures, Gone in 60 Seconds. Did you know though that Angie is the daughter of Hollywood icon Jon Voight? Now they are known to have an incredibly tumultuous relationship, with the pair not speaking to each other for many years. I quote, "My father and I don't speak. I don't believe that somebody's family becomes their blood, because my son's adopted and families are earned." Preach, Angie. Jon Voight is of course famous for starring in Anaconda, Midnight Cowboy, and my personal favourite, Deliverance. He's an incredibly talented actor, although there are constantly rumours about his on and off-screen behaviour, which sums up why himself and Angie don't particularly get along.
At number 10 we have Kate Hudson. Since Kate Hudson was a child, her father hasn't been a part of her life. In 2021, Kate sat down for an interview with Today, and during the interview she told them that she was no longer speaking to her father due to an issue that started 41 years ago. She went on to state, "I think estrangement is unfortunately quite common, and I think it's important for people to talk about that. If they can't reconnect or if it's too challenging, that's okay, right?" She then went on to add that she has a stepfather who stepped in and played a huge part in showing her what it is to have a dependable father figure, but that didn't take away from the fact that she never knew her real dad. While Kate has chosen to forgive her father, she understands that him not being a part of her life has probably been very painful for him, and he's just going to have to live with that pain. At number 9 we have Heather Graham. Heather was raised by a Catholic family, with her father working in the FBI and her mother being a school teacher. At one point in Heather's life, they threatened to send her off to become a nun so she would behave better. After leaving high school, Heather would eventually stop speaking to her parents, as the star didn't care to dwell on the estrangement. She has declined to talk about her mother and dad as she's worried her words might be misconstrued. In 2013, the actor's mom and dad did allegedly tell The Sun that they never pressured their daughter to become a nun, and they didn't understand the reason between their rift. Up until Heather started the film Boogie Nights, her parents did recall them having a happy and close relationship, and when the film came out, it destroyed their relationship. Hey Peaches, are you enjoying this video so far? If so, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. At number 8 we have Christina Aguilera. Christina Aguilera has had a turbulent relationship with her father since she was a child. The singer has openly spoken out about her relationship and her parents and how her father physically and emotionally affected her life as well as her mother's life. Christina has also said that her greatest moment as a child was actually the day her parents got divorced. In 2012, Christina did share that she was willing to put the two differences aside to meet up with her father. However, there's never actually been a report on whether the two did sit down face to face with each other. Christina has also acknowledged that her experience with her father has made her a strong woman she is today. While watching her dad treat her mom wrongfully, it made her realize that she never wanted a man to take advantage of her like that, and she was never going to let a man tell her what she could and couldn't do. At number 7 we have Demi Lovato. Demi Lovato is somewhat of an open book, as the star is never scared to shy away from admitting her struggles and experiences. In a video discussing her father in her 2015 album Confident, Demi did admit that she had a lot of mixed feelings when it came to the passing of her father. The star felt very conflicted because her father was known to be pretty mean. However, while he was mean from time to time, he also wanted to be a good person and he wanted to have his family. When her parents divorced and her mom finally did marry her stepdad, he still ended up having a huge heart and would say, "I'm glad that the stepdad was taking care of her, and he's glad that her stepfather was doing the job he could never do." At number 6 we have Adele. Since Adele's father abandoned her mother when she was a child, Adele has had a pretty strained relationship with her father. With the hopes of one day reconnecting, things would soon turn sour after her father spoke about Adele to the British press. The singer would later tell Vogue, "I was actually starting to have a relationship with him and then he effing blew it. He will never hear from me again." However, Adele would later have a change of heart just before her father's passing. After the two met up and they got their peace out, her and her father were finally able to put old things aside, and he was able to become a proper granddad and have the chance to meet Adele's son, Angelo.
Meghan Markle. The Duchess of Sussex and her father were estranged before her 2018 wedding to Prince Harry, but she reportedly still hoped that he would show up for her big day, which put even more strain on their almost non-existent relationship. Just 2 days before the wedding, Thomas Markle gave an interview to TMZ where he claimed that he decided not to attend Meghan and Harry's wedding in order to avoid causing his daughter any further embarrassment. After admitting to conspiring with a photographer to pose for a series of staged paparazzi photos, the former lighting designer also underwent surgery after having a heart attack the week before the wedding, so his health was also called into question. According to the book Finding Freedom by Omid Scobie and Carolyn Durant, Meghan was humiliated that her father didn't attend her wedding and heard that he backed out of walking her down the aisle. And although she was upset that her father was speaking with tabloids and staging photo ops ahead of her wedding, she still made arrangements to fly him to London so that he could be there for her special day. But ultimately, Meghan became so estranged from her father that they reportedly weren't even in contact when she and Harry welcomed their son Archie in May of 2019. Number 4. Eminem. When we're talking about rocky relationships with parents, none are more well documented in music than Eminem's estranged relationship with his mother. In fact, speaking about her failings as a parent is part of the reason that Debbie Mathers Briggs decided to sue her son in 1999 when he was just 26 years old. Debbie wanted $10 million in damages, and according to Eminem's lawyer, she had been threatening to sue him since the success of his single My Name Is. She also took issue with her son's lyrics about his upbringing, calling them total fabrications. She told MTV News in 2008, quote, "I wasn't happy when he made up a whole new life for himself. What mother wants to be known as a pill-popping alcoholic who lives on welfare? To tell the truth, I was heartbroken. The lies started coming in thick and fast. I think he's forgotten the good times we had." But Eminem's music did have a lot of truth to it, as his mother fell pregnant with him when she was only 18, and his father abandoned him when he was born. From that point on, they struggled financially and moved around a lot. So after having gone through so much hardship together, it's sad that their relationship eventually ended entirely. Number 3. Drew Barrymore. She became a star at the ripe old age of 7 when she played Gertie in 1982's E.T., and she was born into a famous family of actors, so she was truly meant for show business. However, behind the curtain of her star-studded life, there was a lot of darkness. According to The Guardian, Drew Barrymore's father, John, was a raging alcoholic, and her mother, Jade, lacked parental responsibility, and she also acted as Drew's manager and put her to work in show business at only 11 months old. But when her parents divorced, the young actress was left with her mother, who frequently took her out to party at Studio 54, where she was exposed to illicit substances and a lifestyle that was meant for adults. But by the age of 13, Drew had already been in rehab and had been institutionalized. In fact, it was a psychiatric hospital that suggested that she should emancipate herself, as they believed that she would be better off on her own. Drew agreed, cut contact with Jade, and at 14 years old, she was already living by herself. The actress would be estranged from her mother for decades, and recently revealed on Oprah that she was not present at her wedding because they both discussed it beforehand and thought that it would be best. Number 2. Brie Larson. Some of the inspiration for her emotionally wrenching performance in the movie Room comes from her own life and difficult childhood. The 32-year-old actress told Elle that her parents divorced when she was a young girl, and she hasn't seen or spoken to her father in 10 years. "When legally I didn't have to have visitation with him anymore, I jumped on it. As a kid, I tried to understand him and understand the situation, but he didn't do himself any favors. I don't think he ever really wanted to be a parent." In fact, Brie said that she hasn't spoken to her French-Canadian father since 2005. Her parents, Sylvain and Heather, were chiropractors who had their own business in Sacramento, but would eventually divorce while Brie was still very young. But despite her strained relationship with her father, the actress is still close with her mother, who accompanied her to the US premiere of Room. Quote, "My mom created this amazing world, and I never remembered it as being a time where things were tight and we were just eating top ramen and 99-cent Jack-in-the-Box tacos. I didn't have any toys. It didn't feel that way to me at all. It didn't feel sparse." So she clearly still appreciates that her mother did her best to raise her as a single parent. And coming in at number 1, Frances Bean Cobain. In 1992, when Frances was just weeks old, child welfare officers removed her from her parents' home for a short period of time following the publication of a Vanity Fair article that alleged that Courtney had used illicit substances during her pregnancy. The investigation was eventually dismissed and Frances was returned home. 11 years later, Courtney lost custody of her daughter again after being arrested for an attempted break-in at her ex-boyfriend's home. Kurt's mother was appointed as Frances's guardian until Courtney regained custody almost 2 years later following a stint in rehab. Ironically, Courtney herself fought for and won legal emancipation from her own parents while she was still a teenager because she no longer wanted to be associated with her parents Linda Carroll and Hank Harrison. Meanwhile, Frances wanted to file for emancipation from her mother when she was 17, but instead she just got a temporary restraining order against her, and her paternal grandmother and aunt were given custody at the time. Frances went on RuPaul and Michelle Visage's podcast and explained that at the time her mother was a very loud addict. "When I stepped away from all those antics, I was looking for the most normal thing I could find, and clearly that was her paternal grandmother at the time."
Beginning our list at number 10 is Nicki Minaj. The singer has been said to have found her set of wings within a broken nest. In other words, she came from a troubled childhood. In 2010, she revealed that her father was an aggressive substance addict who subjected herself and her mother to neglect, theft, and even arson. She spoke candidly with Vibe magazine and said, "When you have a father who is stealing your furniture and selling it so that he can buy crap, you suffer. You come home from school and your couch is gone. You're like, what happened?" Nikki was actually born in Trinidad but moved to New York at just the age of 5. She revealed that she lived in constant fear when she was young, worried that her father would end the life of her mother. But her father did get the help that he needed later in life and checked into rehab and started going to church. Sadly, he was struck by a vehicle earlier this year and passed away. Nikki has said that it has been the most devastating loss of her life. That's so sad. Up next, number 9, we have 50 Cent. Before he became one of the biggest rappers in the world, he grew up in a very broken home. His real name is actually Curtis Jackson, for anyone who has ever wondered but been too lazy to Google it. His father abandoned his family when he was born, and his mom was a substance dealer when he was very young. Sadly, his mother passed away when he was just 8 years old, so he was sent to live with his grandma. While his grandma did care for him the best that she could, Curtis seemed to follow down his mother's footsteps and went down a dark path with substances. He was arrested when he was just 18 for possession of a weapon at his high school. Even as his life and career progressed, he still struggled to break away from substances. It wasn't until his son came into the world where he made changes in his life. In 2005, he told People magazine, I quote, "My priorities changed. My son is the reason I stopped doing the things my mother was doing." I didn't even know he had a kid, to be honest. Swiping our number 8 spot is Christina Aguilera. Many people don't know the dark side of her past, and that's because she always puts on a very strong face. Even in her music, she came across as a very strong, independent woman. But in a candid discussion with E! News, fans got to learn a lot more about her personal life and where she came from. During her interview, she revealed that when she was a child, she felt completely powerless against her father, who was very aggressive and violent. She admitted that she turned to singing as an outlet for that. Christina's mother Shelly once remembered a very terrifying incident when she found Christina at just 4 years old with her face all bruised up. Turns out her father was napping and she apparently made too much noise. Her mom eventually left him and took her and her sisters to live with their grandmother so that they could be safe. To this day, Christina says the pain that she felt at home is actually where her love for music came from. In spot number 7, we have Angelina Jolie. The Hollywood star grew up in Los Angeles, which might seem like a dream for a lot of people, but it was not all glitz and glam in her childhood. She says she suffered from depression at a very young age because she just didn't appreciate her life. She talked to the Wall Street Journal and said she couldn't appreciate or understand her life at the time, which led her to be very destructive and miserable. She explained and said, "I was raised in a place where if you have fame and money and you're decent looking and have the ability to work in this industry, you have everything in the world. Then you attain those things and realize you still couldn't be more empty." Things got so dark for her that her childhood caregiver once said that she had to take Angelina to the hospital because her struggles with anorexia were so severe. And for anyone who doesn't know, she was actually born into parents who were already actors at the time, so she grew up in a world of fame. Cruising in number 6 is Ashley Judd. Her on-screen presence would never show that she has been through some traumatic experiences in her childhood, but fans got to learn all about them in her memoir. In 2011, she wrote a memoir called All That Is Bitter and Sweet and revealed shocking details of the neglect, assault, and exposure to substances that she faced when she was younger. Because of how traumatic her life was growing up, she admitted to being severely depressed throughout her life. She said that she was neglected during her mother's rise to fame as a country superstar, which most people might think would be really cool to have a parent gaining fame as a musician. But it was actually the opposite for Ashley, and she was happy to finally share it with the world. When talking about sharing all these very disturbing details to the public, she said, "The shame and the keeping ourselves sick through secretiveness is one of the things we all need to have the courage to undo."
Number 5, Angelina Jolie. Arguably at one point, Angelina was the biggest actress in the world, and she will always be remembered for her roles in films like Tomb Raider, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Maleficent, and many more. Being the daughter of John Voight, her dad was also one of the most famous actors in the world at one point due to his work in movies like Midnight Cowboy and Deliverance, and still gets regular acting work to this day. Running in a lot of the same circles, you would think that this quality may draw them closer to another, but it's far from that case. It appears that both actors have struggled to have a strong relationship since Angelina was 8 years old. While it looks like they had moments of reconciliation, signs of severe rifts have surfaced. While John has pleaded with Angelina to get help in some public interviews, instead of listening to her dad, she's taken things to another level and completely erased him from her life. She even legally changed her name from Angelina Jolie Voight to Angelina Jolie to obviously make a jab at her father, which is actually pretty messed up. Number 4, the Jacksons. There is no doubt that the Jackson family is one of the most celebrated families when it comes to the history of music. First coming into prominence due to the Jackson 5, they would gain huge success. Nobody could have ever expected the group would be that huge and overshadowed in the years to come. When Michael went out on his own as a solo star, he became one of the biggest celebrities alive and was nicknamed the King of Pop for good reasons. Not one to stay in the shadows, even his little sister Janet would follow her brothers into the music industry and outdid everyone other than Michael, whose career she arguably rivaled with at one time. With so many superstars coming from one single family, it looks like they can owe a lot of their acclaimed fame to their father Joe, who from all the accounts pushed them hard to be as close as perfect as possible. Unfortunately, that came in the forms of physical altercations, which he admitted to in 2010, and because of that, he was seen by his kids and much of the public as a monster, especially when it came to his altercations with Michael Jackson. As a result, there have been reports that Michael couldn't forgive him, and Joe has largely been excommunicated from his large family. Number 3, Anna Chickadee Cardwell. For those of you who aren't really fans of reality TV, then you may have no idea who Anna Chickadee Cardwell is. But for anyone who enjoys reality TV, then you most likely know who she is, thanks to the spin-off of a highly controversial show called Toddlers in Tiaras. The show Here Comes Honey Boo Boo focused on a unique beauty pageant family that all go by interesting nicknames like Sugar Bear and Chubbs, and one of the daughters who went by Chickadee. And she's grown up and has her own family since the cancellation of the show that introduced her to the world. Her relationship with her mother has become strained, publicly claiming that Mama June, as she is known, misappropriated the funds she earned from appearing on the show. It's clear that Anna holds a lot of anger towards her mother. While June has continued to deny Anna's claims, she has stated that the money was sent directly to her daughter's bank account, and the distrust between them means that June is not allowed to have unsupervised contact with her granddaughter. And number 2, we have Dimitri Bell. When Dimitri Bell first got drafted into the Buffalo Bills NFL team in 2008, Bell played well enough that he was able to continue to play for the Cowboys as late as 2013. Like all professionals, he has been the topic of a lot of discussions, but his career isn't the first reason he has been on the lips of people. That is because he is the son of 14-time NBA All-Star player Karl Malone, and his relationship with his dad has never been anything close to controversial. The child of Gloria Bell, who was only 13 years old at the time of his birth, and his father, who was 20 the year he was born, spent years denying he fathered a child with a minor. When Bell finally learned about his parentage and met his father after graduating from high school, he finally met his father, and his father would tell him it was too late to have a father and son relationship. According to reports, Bell is said to be ashamed of the relationship he shares with his father, which is a strong indication that he has a lot of justified anger towards his father. Number 1, Francis Bean Cobain. Being the child of Nirvana frontman Kurt Cobain and his wife Courtney Love, who fronted the band Hole, since Francis Bean Cobain was born, she was instantly put into a position that meant the world was likely to pay attention to her. And while it seemed like she should have had a life full of luxury and peace, it was actually far from that. When Francis's father took his own life when she was a child, Courtney would fall into perils of substance and addiction, and Francis's home life would become very difficult. Despite being a child of music icon, Francis doesn't see her father in the same light that much as the world sees her father in. Instead, Francis feels like Kurt abandoned her in the worst possible way, and she isn't exactly fond of her mom. When Frances was finally able to emancipate herself from her mother, Frances would break off nearly all contact she had with her mother for years, to the point that when Frances tweeted out to her mom in 2012, it was seen as a breakthrough between them.
Coming at 10, Kiefer Sutherland. Born Kiefer William Frederick Dempsey George Rufus Sutherland, yeah, I'm serious, that's his name, this dude has had an incredibly prolific career, starring in films such as Mirrors, Phone Booth, Stand By Me, and of course, The Lost Boys, one of the greatest films of all time. I think at this point it's common knowledge, but Kiefer Sutherland is the son of Hollywood legend Donald Sutherland. Canada's treasure, therefore my treasure. Donald Sutherland shot to fame through roles in Oedipus the King, MASH, National Lampoon's Animal House, and for the younger viewers out there, The Hunger Games. Sigh. According to a source, the pair didn't get to spend much time together over the years until they worked on Forsaken together. I quote, "It wasn't until the last few days of shooting that I realized this was the most time I've spent with my father." Well, that's just kinda sad, isn't it? Coming in at 9, Emma Roberts. Love her or hate her, Emma Roberts comes from a very prestigious Hollywood family, filled to the brim with shining stars. Now her last name may give it away, but no, we're not talking Julia Roberts, who yes, is her aunt, but let's talk about her father. Emma's father is Hollywood icon Eric Roberts, and if you don't know who that is, I'm shook. His IMDb page credits him as starring in over 500 movies and TV shows throughout his incredibly prolific career, with such projects as The Dark Knight, Runaway Train, The Cable Guy, and of course everyone's favourite, The Human Centipede 3 Final Sequence. Now, although Emma Roberts may have had some help breaking into the industry, she has certainly paved her own way, with roles under her belt like We're the Millers, Scream Queens, Palo Alto, and Scream 4. Regarding her lineage, Emma said, I quote, "I think it's important to choose to make decisions for yourself, and that's part of growing up in any career you have. I think you need to know what you like and what you don't, and how you want to build a career." Preach. Coming in at 8, Amber Tamblyn. I don't know where Amber Tamblyn went, but honestly I want to know. For a period of time she was shining in the spotlight, starring in films like The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, and The Grudge 2. However, she has only made small appearances here and there over the last few years, making a handful of cameos on Inside Amy Schumer, as well as 2.5 Men. We don't speak about that one. I need her back, people. Regardless of her career, Amber Tamblyn is the daughter of acclaimed actor Russ Tamblyn, who of course starred in films such as West Side Story, The Haunting, 7 Brides for 7 Brothers, Drive, and my favourite TV show, Twin Peaks, and much, much more.
Let's talk about Laura.
Okay, let's talk about Laura.
Bobby, what happened the first time that you and Laura made love?
Honestly, this dude was a king in Hollywood back in the day and still makes appearances here and there, the most recent being in The Haunting of Hill House, where he took on the role of Dr. Montague. All I can say is, I need more Russ and I need more Amber. Give it to me now. Coming in at 7, Charlie Sheen. Look, I hate talking about Charlie Sheen, I really do. I don't appreciate his behaviour, I don't appreciate his work, but I do appreciate his incredible lineage. Charlie Sheen shot to fame through roles in films such as Red Dawn, Wall Street, and of course the hit TV show 2.5 Men. He is also the son of Hollywood legend Martin Sheen. If you're unfamiliar, shame on you, but this icon starred in films such as The Departed, Apocalypse Now, Badlands, and The Way. Not only did he create one successful son, he created another as well, Emilio Estevez, the best Estevez and the best Sheen, just saying. He starred in hit films such as The Breakfast Club, The Outsiders, and Bobby. Honestly, sorry Charlie, but there's no topping that. I guess this number should have just been about Emilio. I screwed up. Damn it. Coming in at 6, Dakota Johnson. I'm no lover of Dakota Johnson. I think she's a subpar actress with a terrible attitude. However, I can't ignore the lineage she comes from. An incredibly successful lineage at that. So much so that her mother could have had her own number. For those who don't know, Dakota Johnson shot to fame through her role as Anastasia Steele in 50 Shades of Grey, before going on to star in How to Be Single, Bad Times at the El Royale, and Suspiria. The terrible remake that is, not the superior Dario Argento masterpiece. Anyway, I digress. Some will be surprised to know that Dakota is actually the daughter of Melanie Griffith and Don Johnson, the former an Oscar nominee and famous for appearing in films such as Working Girl, Raw, Now and Then, and more recently, The Disaster Artist. She is also the daughter of Tippi Hedren, aka The Birds. Her father, of course, was known for starring in Miami Vice, Django Unchained, and From Dusk Till Dawn, the series. Very impressive. If only they had taught their daughter manners. What a shame.
Halfway through our list at number 5 is Brandon Thomas Lee. At first thought, it might be pretty cool to have your parents be Pamela Anderson and Tommy Lee, but apparently it wasn't all glitz and glam like some of us might have thought. Brandon and his brother Dylan have talked about growing up in a very difficult childhood life. For one, having their mom as the biggest sex symbol in the world was a struggle, as we can imagine. But Brandon revealed that things between his parents were very toxic. The two of them got into physical altercations, and the kids were always in childcare, not being raised by the parents full time. Pamela ended up sending Brandon and Dylan to a boarding school in Canada, so they were separated for a while. As the boys grew older, they did find their way back to mend things with their mom, but in 2018, when Brandon was 24, he got into a physical physical altercation with his dad and actually knocked him out. Fans see Brandon talk about his relationship with his parents on the Hills as he was added as a new cast member in the reboot series. Cruising into spot number 4 is Meatloaf. The singer has revealed a lot about his troublesome childhood during interviews and says there are so many things that he has blocked out as a way to cope with it all. He revealed his dad was an alcoholic who would disappear for a few days at a time and said he was physically towards him. As for his mom, she was sick with breast cancer for so long that he didn't have a normal relationship with her, and she sadly passed away when he was just 18. He admitted that it took him 10 years to deal with her death because he had actually run away to California to hide from the pain, and her last words to him were, "Where were you?" The struggle still stays with him to this day, but he says he's blacked out most of his childhood memories, but admits that a psychologist would probably help him deal with it better. Taking over our third spot is Ariel Winter. The actress shared her personal life with the world in recent years, revealing that she missed out on a normal childhood after living in isolation with her mom for 14 years. She grew up in the spotlight after landing a lead role on the TV series Modern Family, and admitted that she had a lonely and tense childhood due to a relationship with her now estranged mother. She explained their strained relationship and said that growing up it was just the two of them, and Ariel wasn't allowed to have connections with other people. She also said her mom emotionally and physically abused her when she was very young. At 14 years old, she emancipated herself from her mom and moved in with her sister Chanel Gray until she was 18. Once she moved out away from her mom, she was able to reconnect with her dad and said that they grew incredibly close, calling him today a great friend and a good person. Rolling into the number 2 spot, we have Britney Spears. Her tense relationship with her father has made worldwide news after people found out that he had total control over her life and finances legally and refused to give them back to her. Her father, Jamie Spears, was put under her conservatorship following her public breakdown in 2008 after she was proven to not properly be able to care or manage herself during her mental health struggles. That was over a decade ago though, and people cannot understand how he still has access since she seemed to turn her life back around. Britney has been asking the judge to permanently remove him from her conservatorship, revealing that the two of them have never had a good relationship and that he is not doing it with her best interests in mind. The hashtag Free Britney started in 2020 as the world is now petitioning for her to get the rights back to her conservatorship, which is actually split into 2 parts. One for her estate and financial affairs, and the other for her as a person. Her father still has control of both. We've made it to number 1, and we have Charlize Theron. Not many people know about her traumatic childhood, but she shared it with the world and left people completely shocked. She grew up in a farm in South Africa, and at age 13 she wanted to continue her ballet studies, so she began attending a boarding school that specializes in the arts. During a visit home when she was just 15 years old, her mother shot and took the life of her father in an act of self-defense. Turns out he was drunk and began shooting at her and then threatened to harm the children as well, so she started to shoot back. Charlize says she survived the incident, which she's very proud of, and also thanks her mom for quite literally saving her life.